Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So I got another request to talk about Johnny Test, specifically the first episode, Johnny the Son of the Earth / Johnny X. Before I start talking about that though, I just want to say I've been getting some comments about like if I do requests on the channel and stuff. And I'd like to kind of further address that. I want to make like a video about that. So I'm gonna, but I don't want that to be like part of this video, so yeah, I'm gonna record that after I record this one, so like be on the lookout for that. Okay, anyway, back to Johnny Test, because I didn't want to, I wanted this one to just be focused on talking about the show. So the plot of the first segment, Johnny the Son of the Earth, is that there's these underground bandits that are stealing everyone's stuff, and there's this like $500 cash prize if the bandits get caught. So of course Johnny wants the prize, and he is completely convinced that the bandits in question are actually mole people. So then him and Dookie, they use this giant drill, of course it's like one of his sister's gadgets and stuff, to get to the center of the earth. They end up in like jail, and they have to use some of the items and stuff from like an earlier part of the episode, which is like this salt that turns you into like a monster, and his dad's camera, because he's also going to the center of the earth because his dad's camera ended up getting taken, and Johnny has to go get it back to be able to like escape and stuff. Yeah, that's like pretty much like the plot description with it and stuff. So the salt I was talking about, Johnny's sisters, Susan and Mary, they make this salt, because I kind of forgot that they, one of their goals, I guess, is they both have a crush on the same guy, and this guy named Gil, and they're like always trying to get his attention and stuff, which actually the second episode's also about that as well, or the next part of this episode, I mean. But with this one, it's that they're trying to make this salt that turns you into like a hot teenager or something, and they test it on Johnny. What was kind of interesting with that though is like they didn't specify like, oh, it's gonna turn you into like a hot teen girl, like for them it's just like, yeah, it turns you into like a hot teenager or whatever. So you think with Johnny it would like turn him into like a buff dude or something, or like whatever, but no, it turns him into a teenage girl for like a few seconds. I mean, they end up explaining there's like a reason for that, but that kind of wasn't what I was expecting. But then it ends up turning into him into this like monster and whatever, and he ends up having to use the salt later. I think it's kind of funny. Like Bling Bling Boy, he also has a part in this episode. Like he becomes part of the main plot, but I find it funny that sometimes in the show he's like such a joke, where if at the moment he doesn't have anything to do with the main plot, they just ignore him. Like he shows up to ask Susan for a date and she refuses, and they turn him off on the monitor, but then they end up having to like ask for his help later. It's kind of funny because he isn't even really like that helpful in the episode either. Like he ends up showing up, I think it's to rescue Johnny or something. His sisters ask Bling Bling Boy about his drill. That's funny too. They don't even bother like trying to go with Bling Bling Boy to rescue their brother or anything. They just send Bling Bling Boy, and he immediately gives up, and then he ends up in jail because they end up putting Johnny in jail too. Like I thought it was gonna be even like a little shorter bit of like Bling Bling Boy getting to the center of the earth and hopping out of his drill and then immediately getting put in jail, but instead it's that he surrenders immediately and then he gets put in jail. There's this, when they're trying to go to the center of the earth and they're in the big drill, there's this voice that says like 10 minutes later, and it kind of threw me off because I'm so used to the one from SpongeBob where it's like the monotone French voice that's like 10 minutes later, but then the one for this show, it's like super cheerful, it's like 10 minutes later or whatever, and that kind of threw me off. But I think that's what made it funny, honestly, because it like takes them a while to, you know, get to the center of the earth. I remember when I used to watch this show when it was like still airing and stuff, that the dad, Johnny's dad, I mean, was always like making meatloaf specific. I find that kind of funny that in like these kind of kid shows there's always like one specific kind of food that like everyone else in the show universally like hates and stuff, and in this show it's the dad being so hyped to make meatloaf, and I just kind of assumed it was like, because I didn't remember, that it was just gonna be Johnny, that like Johnny, or at least like Johnny and his sisters that don't like the meatloaf. But no, you see later in the episode the mom is like freaking out about the meatloaf as well. And you know what, I didn't even question it when Johnny assumed that it like, oh yeah, it's, you know, mole people that are taking everyone's stuff, and you know, no one else believes him, because I thought, yeah, that sounds wacky enough for the show, and then sure enough it ends up being mole people. Like at the beginning of the episode they try to make it seem like it's like, I don't know, biker gang or whatever, especially because they refer to the thieves as underground bandits. So you think like, okay, it doesn't like literally mean underground, you know, like under the surface of the earth. It could just be like some really tough people, but no, it's literal, it's mole people. Because I haven't seen like every episode of the show. I just kind of remember like bits and pieces as I've been rewatching some of these episodes. And at first I was like, wait, I don't remember any mole people. I thought it was just going to be like a one-time thing for this episode. But I think I do actually remember the Mole King from the other episodes, and like him specifically, not even like the other moles. So I guess, you know, he comes from this episode, especially because he like swears revenge against Johnny at the end of the episode. So you think like, yeah, you know, he's going to like pop up in other episodes. Let's see, what else? I was kind of waiting. I mean, this kind of happens in like a lot of shows and stuff where it's like they get an important item and it ends up being useful later, which as soon as the camera was introduced, I thought like, yeah, this is gonna like turn out important, and then you find out it's like actually mole people down there. I mean, they even hint at it too, of like the Mole King being kind of freaked out by light and stuff. So I kept waiting for them, like, okay, they're gonna like use the camera and escape. But of course it's like not until like the very last second and stuff. So it is one of those episodes that's like a little bit more kind of like a little faster paced, I guess. But I thought it was okay. And then the second part of the episode, it's called Johnny X. I was trying to find a picture when I was trying to find like the thumbnail thing of also the Johnny X title card. But I didn't see, it was weird. It's like I looked up Johnny the Center of the Earth, and the title card for it popped up immediately. I was just looking at like Google Images though, and then I tried to look for Johnny X, and then it kept, I guess because of the X in there, it kept trying to show me like Johnny Test fan art or whatever, and I'm like, no, I want the title card. But that's okay, you know, like they're always connected to it's all like part of the same episode and stuff, so I think as long as I have like this one, you know, should be fine. Okay, so the plot for Johnny X is that Johnny wants the ability to fly, and you know, he obviously doesn't have that, so he's like running around with these you know, trying to make wings out of cardboard or whatever, and then Susan and Mary are trying to get Gil's attention, and they fail. I do find the gag kind of funny that they're just even trying to say hi to Gil, and he keeps only saying hi to Johnny, and Johnny's like not even really like caring about it or anything. So they try to give him like a love potion gum, Gil I mean, and for whatever reason it ends up turning him into a monkey. It kind of just is like a bit random too. And Johnny ends up blackmailing his sisters, or like trying to blackmail them anyway, being like, okay, if you give me flight powers, you know, I won't tell Dad that you're like experimenting, because you know that is kind of messed up. If it's implied of like, you know, they've experimented on the neighborhood kids before, and that it probably hasn't gone well, because I just assumed like, yeah, because I remember from a lot of episodes they used Johnny as their personal test subject and everything all the time, and usually he's like fine with it or whatever, mostly, but no, apparently they do that with like other people too. But yeah, the blackmail fails, and it ends up being that Johnny ends up getting superpowers. Him and Dookie, actually. But they have to use their powers to capture Monkey Gill. And then they end up having to, like, rescue him from the military. This one is, like, because they're getting superpowers and stuff, like, a bit more action-y and everything. So I think that's why I like this segment a bit better. And with Johnny, it's like Johnny specifically, out of the two of them, of him and Dookie, that like wants to fly at the beginning of the episode, and then he tries to get it where like they both can fly. I'm actually glad that they ended up with like completely different powers by the time they like actually get the powers and everything, because it would have been kind of a bit boring if like they both had the ability to fly. What it ends up being instead is that Johnny gets shape-shifting powers and Dookie gets the ability to fly. Like, I know Dookie has to be included in the adventure, but I feel like realistically with Johnny having shape-shifting powers, except for the one part where he does end up getting like caught and everything, he probably could have like soloed the whole adventure, because it's like, yeah, Dookie gets the ability to fly, but like Johnny can turn into anything. He could like turn into like a dragon or some shit and gets the ability to fly that way. I am a little disappointed how he ends up using his powers in that, he gets to like test them out a little bit before he goes to rescue Monkey Gill, and with the way he uses his powers throughout the episode, it makes it seem like he can only turn into animals, but you literally see when he gets the powers, like he even turns into one of his sisters and stuff. Like he can probably turn into whatever, or at least he can also turn into people, but no, he only uses it to turn into animals, which like that's cool, but like a little bit boring. But yeah, he turns into an elephant. I thought it was kind of funny to try it, because like Gil's like in a tree or whatever, and the SWAT team shows up and they end up just capturing Johnny instead. I mean, they can tell he's like a mutant animal or whatever, but that's kind of funny of like they're trying to capture the person that's trying to help. And then Johnny ends up in a cell, and he has also specifically like tornado hand powers or whatever, and I'm thinking like, why doesn't he just like, and he doesn't end up out of the cell and stuff. It's like a little cage, really, not like a jail. And I thought like, why doesn't he turn into a snake or something and just like go through the bars rather than trying to blow up the cage? And Dookie literally says the exact same thing of like, hey, you could have just turned into a snake and left. I mean, it turns out it's like one of the only times Johnny's like actually kind of thinking ahead, and it was really set he could like capture Gil and not to get out of the cage, and then he does like turn into a snake and get out of the cage. But yeah, I feel like if he was like smarter with his powers, they could have solved the whole like problem of trying to rescue Gil and stuff like way sooner. Though Johnny does end up getting like more powers as the episode, well, it specifically gets the ability to like fart out fire or whatever, and that ends up being the thing to save them at the end. But yeah, this one was fun just because they end up getting, I think really like any episode of something where like characters end up getting like random superpowers or whatever usually just ends up being pretty fun, because like superpowers are like a cool concept and everything. But yeah, that's pretty much the first episode. It's kind of funny, like before I watched this I was thinking like, I'm not sure if I want to talk about Johnny Test anymore, but you know what, I am actually kind of having fun with it, so I think I'm fine with if you want me to talk about more episodes. I mean, I don't want to have to like rewatch like the entire show, but just like every once in a while, yeah, if you want me to watch it, like cool. But I'm also fine with requests for like other Cartoon Network shows and stuff, because there's like a lot of other cool ones too. And right now I'm gonna make a video, separate one, talking about like requests and some details about that. But yeah, that's pretty much the episode. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.